Well, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. The important part is you'll be able to hear John a little bit later. I'm broadcasting live from the incident command post at the Trout Creek fire. So if the internet goes out, blame AT&T FirstNet because that's what just happened, kind of thing. But so thanks for joining up with us and participating in this continuation of the leadership series from the Montana State Fire Chiefs Association. Again, it's a product that we've been able to put together through a SAFER grant, and that we hope to continue on even down the road for folks that hopefully this is an easier mechanism sometimes to join with us and get some of the information and that we might be able to present at a conference or that somebody might not be able to make it to. And tonight's speaker we have with us is John Buckman. And for you, some of you might remember John came out to the State Chiefs Conference not too terribly long ago and did a presentation with us. And I'll give you a little background on John. He was the fire chief in German Township, Indiana, for a pretty extended period of time, if I believe that's correct. He also spent a good duration as the Indiana State Fire Academy director. He's currently the VCOS, which is the Volunteer and Combination Officer Section Education Coordinator. He was also a former founding board member of the Volunteer and Combination Officer Section, as well as a former IAFC president. And probably John would tell you that the thing that he's most proud of is he's a grandpa too, for a couple grandkids that he makes famous over Facebook on a regular basis, and you can follow them on John's page. And he does a pretty good job at taking pictures as he goes along through his travels. So we know John as a great instructor, mentor in the fire service for a long time, and I'll quit and give our time frame to John because he's got a lot more important information than I have to present to you. So thanks everybody for joining up with us, and I'll turn it over to you, John.
I think we're going to go back to Mikkel. Are we going back to you?
Nope, you're good. Go ahead and get started. You can share your screen.
Well, let's share the content, guys. We did the technology checks earlier, so it worked. Now I just got to make it work again here. There we go. There we go. All right, now we bring up PowerPoint. Can you see it? PowerPoint.
We can. Thank you.
All right, good. Well, thank you all very much for coming in tonight. I know the wildland fires in the West is burning rapidly, more than most of us would ever understand, especially some guy from Indiana. When you talk about burning 160,000 acres or more, we can't relate to that. If we burn an acre in Indiana, that would be a big deal in most of our small and volunteer fire departments. So we're going to talk about turbulent times. We're talking about leading in turbulent times. And the picture of the elephant there is that we didn't get to where we are in the volunteer fire service overnight. So it's like anything is, if you want to make change within your organization, make change within the people within your organization, it's about eating that elephant one bite at a time. So we're going to talk about some of the reasons that are happening, that impact our fire departments, and why we need to change. So Deputy Chief John Eversaw with the Chicago Fire Department made this statement many, many years ago. John has been deceased for quite some time. But I think it's very pertinent to what it is that we're trying to do. The public expects perfection. They don't call the fire department saying, well, can you come tomorrow? They expect the fire department to show up in minutes, not hours, and take care of their problem. As Chief Brunacini used to say, Mrs. Smith wants her problem solved. Quick little bit about my background and why I am so passionate about training and research and learning what's going on in the fire service even today. In 1979, I'd been fire chief for 2 years. We had this fire at a tavern that was closed for the night. 9 of my firefighters were transported to the hospital. None of them died. The good news for this business, it burned to the ground. Obviously, after the roof collapsed and my firefighters were injured, we could care less about the building. The building burnt to the ground. But this business was rebuilt and is still in business today. And what did I risk my firefighters' lives for? It was properly insured, adequately insured, and like I said, it was rebuilt today. So when you look at what you're doing on the fire ground, what is the risk? What is the benefit? I will tell you, and I've said this publicly, I will never forget knocking on Mrs. Bushel's door and saying, ma'am, you need to get dressed. We need to take you to the hospital. Your husband has been injured. Still today, I get the hair on the back of my neck stands up when I make that statement. But I'll never forget that feeling. And none of us want to ever experience that. Injured, or even worse, if someone is killed. When we look at what we're doing today, if you look at this picture on the left, that's probably some of the ugliest smoke I have ever seen. I did not take that picture. That picture is a picture of a plastics manufacturing facility. They actually recycle plastic and make plastic picnic tables and chairs out of it. Well, fortunately, Captain Michael Bacon, who was the first Duke company, took his crew up to that door, and that crew on the right is his crew coming out, and recognized this was not a fire to do interior fire suppression operations. And as you see, if you take a look at the picture on the right, you'll see that the wall is starting to come down as he starts to run out. The other picture on the right here is Captain Bacon. After this picture, I asked him, or later that night, I asked him, so what were you thinking? And he said, I'm thinking I am so lucky that we did not go in. But he recognized that things were different. And that's what we're really talking about here, is we look at turbulent times, not just on the fire ground, but in our operations of our departments, is recognize that something is different and we need to do something different. This is a picture after the wall had collapsed, and you can see there was a bowstring truss roof. They did not know that. That probably also, if they would have known that, they probably wouldn't have got as close as they did. But there's a picture of what it looked like after about 10 seconds. I had just walked around the corner, saw the wall start to collapse. All I could do was just turn my camera up and start shooting. And I was lucky to capture these shots. So when we look at what's going on in our fire departments, and this is pretty much standard around the country, although some localities will have some different things, but we are bothered, and I say it that way, with people who we call frequent flyers, who are, call the fire department every day for whatever they want to call for and expect us to come solve their problem. And in many cases, it's not even an emergency. We have the opioid incidents, and I'm sure we've all dealt with those kind of events. Look at how much Narcan we're giving out. Even in rural America, we're giving out tons and tons of Narcan because the drug addicts know, hey, I can do whatever I want and Narcan will save me. Well, the truth is it does save you about 90% of the time. The lack of fires may not quite be true in Montana and in the West, but the lack of structure fires is probably true in that we don't have a lot of structure fires anymore. So how do we get good at doing something that we only do once a year? I was at a fire a couple of weeks ago, well, a month ago, about 5 weeks ago, actually. And this guy had been on the fire department. He's the fire chief of his department. He'd been on the department 40 years. And this was the second alarm fire he had called in that 40 years. He'd been chief for 10 years. And so even if you have fires, you're not always the incident commander. You're not always the first due on the nozzle. And there's a significant difference when you're the second due on the nozzle. We have less volunteers. Fact. Society has changed. Interests have changed. People's ability to volunteer, their desire to volunteer is less. And so we have not addressed that. I say we bitch about it a lot. The old guys bitch. The young guys aren't very involved anymore. They don't like us. They're not, they're not committed to things like we are. Well, I will tell you, the young people I talk to, they are committed. They're just committed differently. The older generation has to accept that they are different. And I would bet you that most of us, when we were their age, our fathers said, you are so different than I was when I grew up. We've heard the same thing over and over and over again, but we start taking these young people to task for being not like us. I said to my boss, the state fire marshal, Jim Greason, once, he said, what do you want? And I go, I'd like more people like me. He goes, no, you wouldn't. You would not be happy with more people like you. And I got to thinking about that. And he was so right. I don't want more people like me. I want people who think different than me, who will challenge my way of thinking and help me solve the problem. Solving the problem of less volunteers is not bitching about it or bitching about the ones that we do have or taking them to task or challenging them inappropriately. We have to look at how do we get the volunteers that want to join, get them hooked on the fire department and help them to make a decision. The young people today who tell me that they have 5 areas of interest, at least 5 areas of interest. And the fire department is just one of those areas. And it becomes a problem because when I started, I did the fire department. That's what I did. I didn't do sports. I did do wrestling my freshman and sophomore year and maybe junior year in high school. But after that, it was all about the fire department. So, but the young people today have a lot more opportunities to do a lot more things. And guess what? They're doing them. So the fire department's on the list of priorities. We may not like that, but I will tell you, you can't change that. The young people have been brought up in a society of 16, 18, 20 years. They've been taught what is right, what is not right. Some of them have not been taught exactly what is right and what is not right. And we can talk about values and morals and those things as well. But the young people, they are committed to doing what makes them happy. And that's probably something that might be just a little bit different. The older generation, older volunteer firefighters have made lots of sacrifices to serve as a volunteer firefighter and to serve in their community. The young people haven't had to make those sacrifices. They were brought up that way. My granddaughter, my older granddaughter, who's 20 years old, played t-ball. And she was so bashful after the game. She sat over on her mom's lap and she was the last one to go up and get a trophy. And guess what? They were 1 trophy short. But we have taught our kids that everybody wins, everybody gets a trophy. And that's not true in the fire service. And so we have to help those volunteers. We have to educate them that not everybody gets a trophy. You're going to be yelled at, not in your face kind of yelling, but you're going to be yelled at to sort of light your butt on fire. So you get your butt in gear. So we get the job done that we need to get done now, not tomorrow. And we had a fire at German Township. We were in mutual aid, I'll say 4 months ago. And this young guy, he did 1 bottle. He went back to the truck. He took his bottle off. He took his gear off. And I walked over to him. And I said, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm resting." I go, "Get your gear back on. You got to go back in there and fight fire. You rehab, you get some water, and you go back and fight fire." And he looked at me and I said, "You can either be a t-shirt firefighter, or you can put your gear on and go back, and I'll call you a firefighter. If not, give me your gear back and you can go home." Well, he put his gear on and he's become a more productive member. I did talk to him afterwards and coached him, helped him understand why it's important, why you can't be lazy to be on this fire department or to be a firefighter. And he's a more productive member today than he was before that fire. But nobody had ever got in his face, and I didn't literally get in his face, but nobody got in and took the time to tell him, "This is what I need from you. I need speed. I don't need a lackadaisical walk. I need speed. I don't need running, but I need directed activity." So we'll talk a little bit more about the volunteers and what they need and what they want. We have less money. If we don't have less money, we have the same money we had last year. And we all know things cost more. And so it's in one of those things that we have got to start planning 3 to 5 years out on what our needs are from a financial standpoint. Fire trucks cost money. My department has 2 trucks. One's 18 years old, one is 20 years old. I became the board president back in March, and the young guys are saying, "Oh, we need new trucks." And I go, "These trucks aren't wore out. We can have them refurbed for about 1/3 of the cost of a new truck and get 10 more years out of it." And they go, "Refurb? What's that?" Well, it's a way to make a truck last longer. And so we're in the process of having 1 truck refurbed. We'll wait about 2 years to have the second one refurbed. Automatic alarms are another one of those things that creates turbulence within our fire departments, especially in the volunteer fire department, because it has to do with Grandma cried wolf. I'm sorry. Little Red Riding Hood called wolf, because Grandma or somebody made an automatic alarm go off, made the smoke detector go off. They're having trouble cooking, and false alarms drive volunteers away. They don't want to come to make false alarms. So in uncertain and turbulent times, change is the answer. Yes, change creates chaos, but it prevents stagnation and disintegration. So we're going to talk a lot about change. We're going to talk about chemistry and how do we all mix in together, because it all comes down to leadership. And these guys wrote a book on Leadership Challenge 5th edition, page 1. I would encourage you to go and get that book. Well, we have been doing the same thing in many of our volunteer fire departments since 1736, when Benjamin Franklin formed the Volunteer Fire Service in Philadelphia. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. We are recruiting volunteers in the same way we have. We have retention programs that are maybe out of date or maybe aren't even up to date. And we have training programs that are not producing the kind of firefighters that we want, but then we want something different from them. But we're doing the same thing we did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I will tell you that's something we've got to look at changing. Leaders always make people happy, true or false? I know you can't answer that, but you can answer that to yourself. Well, we all know that leaders do not always make people happy. That is a false. The answer to that question is false. But what leaders want, they want firefighters who know and follow the rules, who are smart, who get along with each other, who respond quickly, help put the fire out, and don't get injured. That's what command wants. That's what our firefighters need to understand. That's what command wants from them. So when you look at change, and yes, that slide has the words all backwards and turned over, because I want you to look at that going, change is one of those things where it is unpredictable, it's unexpected, it's threatening, but there's always that uncertainty and it causes disruption. So, but we have to look at change as something that is positive, sets a positive tone for organization, and helps us create a brighter future. What we look at when we look at, the young versus the old, we look at traditions. We know traditions are important, but when you don't know why you're doing something, you have to ask the question, why are we doing it? Why are fire trucks still red for the most part in the United States and the world for that matter? It's always been that way. We know red fire trucks are not the safest, but you have to look at change as how do we help these young and old people throw out some of the traditions to help make our organizations a better organization. I think change is exciting. I think change helps us move to the future. It is about transformational organizations. How do we transform from where we are today to where we need to be tomorrow? Yes, we want you to think outside the box. We want you to challenge the existing approaches, and we want to focus on achievable priorities. And that's probably a very important statement off this slide, is focus on achievable priorities. As you start to set goals and objectives for your fire department for a year or maybe 3 years, they have to be achievable. They have to be hard, but they have to be achievable. And we don't want to do something, have a goal that is so easy that it's not a problem to meet. So we look at that. You, as the leader, have to set the example. People do what they see, not what they're told. You're responsible. You're the person in charge to get through the disruptions and help them solve their problems. This is why I like to use the term change leadership instead of change management. In order to make change effective, you need someone who's going to lead the people. Pick up the rope and pull the rope and hope that the people will hold on to that rope. You want to invest in your own growth and development. Make sure that you as a leader know enough about leadership, know enough about management, know enough about change to help organization move towards the future. If you need help, and we all need help, we all know that people get depressed in this day and age. They need help. They're afraid to ask for help because they're afraid that they will have a stigma of asking for help because they're having some mental health challenges. But the reality is we all have mental health challenges. I went to see a new eye doctor on Monday, And it's one of those where you fill out this questionnaire and it said depression, yes or no. I checked yes. And the nurse goes, you suffer from depression? I go, yes, I have depression. I'm depressed from time to time. Anybody who says they don't have depression, they're lying. She goes, well, I guess you're right. And I go, yes. I said, I do. I understand. But if you're depressed for more than a couple of days, then there's a problem. But, we all get depressed because of situations that are going on around us, our family challenges, our fire department challenges, our work challenges, just life in general. But we need to make sure that the people in our organization who have those bad experiences, that we're trying to help them and make sure that they get that kind of help. You as a leader, got to support your team. I talked to a fire chief today. He was talking about command boards. And he said, I'd like to have a command board, but I'd like to ask my officers what kind of command board they would want. And I said, you just ask the right question. Don't go to the officers meeting and say, here's the command board we're going to use, and expect them to use it when they had no input into it. So as a leader, as you start to make change within an organization, make sure you're supporting what your team wants. Ask them the questions. You're not important without a team. You can't be successful without a team. And look at diversity. I know the International Association of Fire Chiefs look at diversity, inclusion as two big challenges in the fire service. And I would agree with that. Although I would say that the issue of diversity may be a lot easier to address on the East Coast than it is in the Midwest or even in the West. Because in the Midwest, I would tell you there's just not that, there's not that much diversity. Not using it as an excuse, just sort of making a statement. So we have to look at how do we get a diverse team and how do we make sure we're recruiting for a diverse team. One of the things that I would tell you for the young people today is discipline is important. But remember, discipline is about the ability to change their behavior. It's not about punishment. If they're not willing to change their behavior, then punishment will come into play. But I want leaders to think about catching people in the act of excellence, catching them in the act of doing something right. I don't think we don't recognize our members enough for doing the right thing. Now, I will not tell you that I'm not saying you give every one of them a trophy, and you're not going to pat them on the back just for showing up. But my point is, you need to pat them on the back for doing something special, doing something extraordinary. That's what we all have, that desire. We want appreciation more than anything in an organization. That's what we want. And in the volunteer association, that's what we got. We don't have any money. Yes, there are some benefits. Excuse me, that might help us. But all we got is appreciation. So if you as a leader can't find me or catch me doing the right thing, I think you need to look a little bit harder. But that is a big deal in the young people today, is that they want to know that you see them doing the right thing. Again, make sure that they earn that pat on the back. They don't earn a pat on the back just for showing up and getting on the truck and making a run. That's what everybody is expected to do. So we don't recognize them for that. As it looks at leading, I believe that as a fire chief, if you have a volunteer staffing issue, you've got to be proactive. You've got to tell people that you have a problem. You've got to admit it. You've got to be bold in proposing solutions. You got to outwork everybody else on the department to try to get people. How do we recruit people? We recruit people by asking them. Now, I will tell you that you have to train all of the members on your department to ask their friends, their neighbors, their acquaintances, why don't you think about becoming a volunteer firefighter? I call it the elevator speech. You have 30 seconds. When you meet somebody and you're wearing a fire department shirt, hat, jacket, whatever, you have 30 seconds to impress them about the fire department and make them a little bit curious. They might say, yeah, I'll come down to the fire station on Monday night and see you. That's where you have the opportunity to lead your organization by being bold, doing something different. Teach your people to come up with that elevator speech, 20 to 30 seconds. Lean on your support system. You are, as the leader, you are not the only one that needs help. And so, but you have people that will work for you if you ask them. I was talking to a training officer, and I know several guys on his fire department, and they had done some tick training, and they needed a dummy that heated up. And I said, well, I got an idea on how to do that. He said, what? And I go, well, you go build a dummy out of old 1 3/4 hose, and you build a little dummy. And I said, we'll go get a curling iron, and we'll stick that in, the curling iron in the legs or in the arms, and that's what you'll see with the tick. And he goes, great. I don't know how to do that. And I go, well, I know JR on your department, and he'll know how to do that. I'll send him a couple pictures, throw it at him. And it was 4 days, and JR had that dummy built. So you don't have to solve all the problems on your department yourself. Have your members help you solve the problems on your department. I would tell you this is important from a leadership standpoint. It's called laugh. Not a big word, but it is important to laugh, to look at life from a humorous standpoint, to have fun, to enjoy it. I mean, we joined the volunteer fire department in many cases because we said we wanted to be involved in things. We want to make a difference, but we also want to have fun. So laughing is part of having fun. And I'll also tell you that laughing, smiling, has the body produce certain endorphins that make you a healthier person. So again, I would encourage you to find things to laugh about. Do comedy. I saw Betta had Kramer from the old Seinfeld comedy series. Watch some old comedy series and laugh. My wife will tell you she knows when I'm watching Tim Conway and on the Carol Burnett show and Harvey Korman, because I'm in my man cave in the basement and I am gut laughing. Because if I feel bad, that's what I go do. I go watch those. And you all probably have seen some of those. And one of them that you know about is the volunteer firefighter, when Tim Conway is a volunteer firefighter. But probably the funniest one that I know of is when Tim Conway plays a dentist and tries to pull a tooth out of Harvey Korman and breaks Harvey Korman up. And I hope that little thought is bringing a little smile to your face. And it's just to show you that when you think about happy things, it brings a smile to your face, and that helps you be healthier. So look at how you can help make yourself laugh. And it's your attitude that is so important in leading in turbulent times. We can sit here and gripe about all the things that are not going right, but life doesn't happen to you; it happens for you. I want you to understand that you're presented with problems. That's why you're in a leadership role, because that's where problems go. They go to the leader. They don't go to the recruit. They go to the leader. So you have the opportunity to solve those problems. And I shouldn't say solve, because most of our problems we don't solve, we address. We address them at this moment in time, but they might resurrect themselves later. Might just be a different face. Could be it's not always about the circus. It's more about the clowns who are in the circus. And some of our volunteer firefighters can play the role of clown and make problems come back up over and over again. So what do we want leaders to do? We want leaders that want to make an impression. Do not want to make an impression. They want to make an impact. Okay? You're not everybody's friend. When someone does right things, recognize them. When someone does things not so right, coach them. That's how you have an impact on their future. I was at a firefighter fatality. I've been at many. I'm sorry. Gosh, I hit the wrong button. What did I do now? Can you see my screen?
We can't see your PowerPoint right now.
All right. What did I do? I know what I did. I touched the screen. Oh my. Share device. Let's see if I can do that now. Well, Mikhail, what did I do? Darn it. Well, we're going to make the best of this. I can't figure out. Let me put my PowerPoint
there you
back
go.
up. Did the PowerPoint come back up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I hit the screen and took the PowerPoint off the screen. So sorry about that, guys. That's because I can't talk without my hands moving, just like many of you in this audience, I'm sure. So, but I've said this in several ways, but people want to know that you care about them. In turbulent times, our people want to know you care about them personally and professionally. And so make sure that you get to know your volunteers personally and professionally and help them through their personal problems. I know Facebook and social media has a lot of baloney on it, but watch Facebook. I saw an Evansville firefighter on Saturday night. I caught a fire with them, and I saw this firefighter's wife post about the health problems they're having with his child. And as he was walking back to the engine to get on the truck and leave, we said hi and we talked. And I said, Mike, I saw what your wife posted on the Facebook tonight, and if there's anything I can do to help you. And he said, Chief, thank you very much. Wow, that's very nice of you. And I said, Michael, I'm serious. If you have to take your child somewhere, I probably know a fire chief in those cities that can help us get in the right door. So don't hesitate to call me. So, you make people feel good. I had lunch yesterday with a former fire chief that I hadn't seen in 10 years. And he made a statement that he was single. And I said, oh, Danny, you've never been married? He goes, oh, my wife died of leukemia 10 years ago. I go, oh, Danny, I'm sorry. I do remember that. He goes, yes, you called me 5 times after she died. You have no idea how that made me feel. So you got to let people know that you care about them more than just as a firefighter, caring about them as an individual, as a person, and care about their family. Because if you care about their family and they know it, they're going to go the extra mile in helping you out in your fire department. When you set goals, I don't have a problem with you aiming high and missing, but I do have a problem if you aim low and you hit the low target. We need to set lofty goals. We need to set goals that challenge us, challenge our members to be better, to challenge our citizens. The fire department, the problems in the fire department are not the fire department's problems. They are the community's problem. They are the elected officials' problem. And as the fire chief, I will tell you, you need to share that problem. You got to get the monkey off your back. It's not always about your fire department's failure to meet the needs of the community. The community has a responsibility there as well. So we encourage you to do that. What do volunteers want from their leaders? I already mentioned appreciation. That is just so important. They want you to manage their time. Don't waste their time. If training's supposed to start at 7 o'clock and the instructor shows up at 5 till 7, is that training going to be very well presented? Possibly not. They don't want you to waste their time. They don't want you requiring them to come to meetings that are unnecessary. They don't want you to make them respond on calls that are unnecessary. So you have to look at how you manage their time and help their priorities. When you look at the priorities, and these are a value statement. I've said this for years. I was never perfect at this. And if you were to get my wife to come down from upstairs, we've been married 28 years. She would tell you I'm right. I did not manage my priorities in this way: faith, family, friends, work, fire department. Fire department was is fifth on the values list, but it was probably 4 and 5 were probably up there in number 2 spot. I'm not proud of that. I'm certainly glad that my wife, 28 years, stuck beside me, and that my kids all still talk to me. And but you have to help people maintain their priorities. When a firefighter has a baby, do you really expect them to be at the fire station for the next couple months? I would think we would expect them to be at home with that baby, helping that mother help raise that baby, get that baby, to where they can sleep overnight. So I encourage you to say, establish the priorities within the organization, but also understand there are personal priorities that you need to support for those members that are on your department. Encourage your members. Encourage them to do better. Encourage them to take classes. Encourage them to challenge themselves. Accept them for what they are. Like I said earlier, these people have been around their families for 20 years, and they have been influenced by all those other people for those 20 years. It's pretty much impossible to change them. I'm not saying you can't change them a little, but you can't wholesale change their attitude, their values, their work ethic, all those kind of things. You can set standards, you can set examples, and some of them will follow along, but accept them for what they are. I was asked once by one of my chief officers. He said, if you want $1 from me and I'm only willing to give you 50 cents, would you take 50 cents? And I said, I would. And that's how it relates to accept. If one of your guys or female, one of your members says, I can only make half the training, will you accept that? I don't know. I'd have to ask, well, what half? That would be one thing. But if they said, I'm only available Thursday through Sunday, I'm not available on Monday or Tuesday, would you accept that? You have to start thinking about that, because our younger volunteers are willing to give some, but they're not willing to give all. Many of them are not. And then be friendly. Oh my gosh, my dad used to tell me, if you don't walk in the office with a smile on your face, go home. If you walk in the office with a frown on your face, you're going to make everybody else frown, and your organization is not going to be friendly. You want friendliness. You want people to be friendly to each other. You want them to socialize together. So these are the things that there are many other things that volunteers want, but these are the big 6 that I think are important to our volunteers. So, credibility is important, and as a leader, you need to be upfront with your members, and again with your elected officials and the citizens, what kind of position your fire department's in. You need to have empathy on our volunteers and where they are and what they're doing and how they get along. Everybody has insecurity, they have fear, they have problems, including you. And so we need to have a little empathy. I don't want to say feel sorry, because that's not what empathy is about, but sort of walk in their shoes once in a while and help understand why they feel the way they are, why they act the way they are. Be positive and hopeful as you communicate with your team members. I will tell you that I'm dealing with a toxic leader right now. I shouldn't say I'm trying to coach a toxic leader from being toxic to be positive. But 3 months ago, he could not say one good thing about his members. Not one member, the assistant chief on down to the newest recruit. He had nothing positive to say about any of them. He's coming around. He's starting to accept them for what they're willing to give. He's starting to, have some goals with them. He's starting to talk to them more. He wouldn't even talk to them. Here's one of the things he did. Had a motor vehicle accident with extrication. This chief has a car. He drives direct. A volunteer shows up, and the chief says, take the battery. The volunteer says, let me do the jaws. The chief says, take the battery. The volunteer says, let me do the jaws. I've never done them on a real run. And the chief said, take the battery. Now, do you think that volunteer was happy after that? Because the chief took the jaws. So it just became so horrible and that's just one example of how this fire chief, he didn't trust any of his members. And they over time came to realize, this guy doesn't trust us. Why do I want to hang around? If you can't say positive things about every one of your members, 1, you need to have a conversation with that member. 2, you need to rethink what your attitude is about. Because I will tell you, toxic leaders will destroy a fire department quicker than most anything else that happens within your organization. Yes, we are going to stand up for our values. There are certain things that make our fire department strong. Honesty, integrity, commitment are just 3 of those words. But who you are and how you show up should not change during times of turbulence. We have to stand up for honesty, integrity, commitment. Because if we allow someone to lie, if we allow someone to cheat and still be a member, then we don't have any values. So I'm not telling you that we're going to give all the older people are going to give everything to the younger people. No, we're going to tell them, here's the standards. I don't expect you to lie. I expect you to be honest in your dealings with people, and I expect you to be committed. Trust yourself. I was talking to a chief earlier today about some decisions that he has to make about one of his training officers. And I said, trust your gut. If your gut tells you you got to fire this guy, then start the process. But if your gut says I can help him change, then work it out. But I said, if your gut says he'll be a problem tomorrow, just like he is today, then why do you want to just continue with that problem? So trust yourself to do the right thing. That's so important. So my final slide, and we'll see if you guys have questions or comments. Learned helplessness. I talked a little bit about mental wellness earlier. I learned this as we're rewriting the Yellow Room report on behavioral wellness. Learned helplessness. Some of our members want to see change within our organization. They want to see a change in the officer structure. Hey, they may want to see a change in the fire chief. But learned helplessness is where I want to do things, but I'm not allowed to do them. I'm stopped by the administration, my captain, my assistant chief, my chief. Well, I'm here to tell you, it's just like the elephant. When they train a baby elephant, they tie it to a chain or to a cable. And when that baby elephant grows up, they don't try to get away from that chain, even though we know that they could pull that chain or that cable out of the ground and they'd be free. Well, with learned helplessness, you give up. So that's what the baby elephant does, and that's what many of our members will do. And I will challenge you to sit down with the members and say, how do we solve this volunteer recruiting problem? How do we solve the retention problem? How do we reduce false alarm? How do we solve the problems that our department is facing? And learn from those people. Take their ideas. If you would take their ideas, they're going to buy into their organization more because they're going to feel more successful. Everybody wants to contribute. Everybody wants to say, I had a part in the solution to that problem. So with that, I will go back to Zoom and I'll stop sharing my screen and you guys can look at me again. Oh my. And all right, we're back. I don't know, Kel, do we have questions or you want to open the mic up?
Yeah, Chief Cowger, he might have had to step away, but yeah, if anyone has questions, you could certainly just turn your camera on and turn your microphone on and ask a question, or if you'd like to type it in the chat, I can read it for you. So feel free to go ahead and ask Chief Buckman some questions or just...
We put
Quiet
them all to
bunch.
sleep together.
Well, why doesn't everyone just turn their cameras on and join us and we can all just chat for a little bit? There you go. See your bright faces. That's awesome. Anyone have any comments or questions for Chief Buckman?
I want to argue.
Yeah.
Well, I see Preston turn his video camera on. He's still got his mic muted.
Can you see that question, Chief Buckman says? Someone said, how do you recover after going through bad times?
Okay. Well, and we've all done it, or we've all had bad times. Let's say that right up front. And we've all recovered from bad times. I lean on my friends. I lean on my family. I will tell you that it took me a few years to where I could say my wife was my best friend. And I would tell you that if you're married, that your spouse is your best friend. We men have no idea how much a woman will stand behind us. And I realize we have some females on here, but I've never been in that situation, so I can't say that. But I have many, many friends that are successful because of their spouses. And so I guess when you go through difficult times, you don't want to burden your spouse, but they want to help you. When they said till death do us part, we all were serious. And so I would tell you to lean on your spouses. I have a good friend, Fred Windish in Ponderosa, Houston, Texas, my best friend that, I could, when I was working, whether it was at the state fire academy or being a volunteer fire chief, when my people did dumb and stupid things, I could call Fred up and just rant and rave for whatever length of time. And he would just listen. And I knew it never get back to my fire department or to my firefighters. So my point is you find yourself a coach. you find yourself a mentor. You find somebody who'll go out to lunch with you once a month, and you can talk about, fire chief to fire chief, about what's going on in your department, the good and the bad. Don't spend all the time talking about the good or the bad. I'm sorry. Spend more time talking about the good than you do talking about the bad. So first answer is spouse. Second answer is find you a fire chief who will mentor you.
That's great. Thanks, Chief Buckman. So Tracy asked, and we might need a clarification. Where do you feel technology comes into play with retaining older members or recruiting new members? So I was wondering if she meant how do we use technology, or if technology might be a deterrent. So I don't know, Tracy, if you want to clarify that. Maybe you don't need clarification.
Let's just add. Well, I'll take the word technology and change it to social media for one part of this. Is that my 4-year-old granddaughter could program my iPhone for me. She's now 8, but 4 years ago she could program my iPhone. And my point is, the young people today live, eat, and breathe on social media and technology. So if you're looking at how you're going to recruit and retain the younger generation, it is going to be about technology and it's about social media. It's not about Facebook. That's the older generation's social media platform, but it's about Snapchat. There's 2 or 3 of them that the young people go to. And so when you look at how you manage your social media and how you look at recruitment and retention, I know a lot of fire departments who have very successful, especially on Facebook. I'm a big Facebook user, that have, they do a lot of recognition on Facebook. When a volunteer of the year or a good rescue or, a good recovery of something or somebody, they use Facebook as a way to award them or reward them for the brave actions. So I think social media for the young people is the key to how we get them interested, recruit them, and keep them interested. By recognizing the accomplishments they all want. And the older generation wants to be recognized as well. A lot of times the older generation will be secretly on Facebook or secretly on Twitter, but they don't ever say anything, but they're observing. And then all of a sudden one day you'll post something and they'll say something back, or they'll like something, they'll make a comment. It's like, I didn't know you followed me. Well, okay. So I think there are a lot of people out there that are actually using, so the older generation is using social media. As it relates to retention, the older generation, I think, still needs plaques, certificates, challenge coins, pins, things like that. They need the things that they can still touch and feel. The younger generation, those are important, but not, I don't think, quite as important. And the younger generation might like a gift card for $50 versus a plaque for $50. And so you have to figure, that's one of the things about motivating people is different strokes for different folks, is you got to figure out what makes that person tick. And I'm stealing this idea. My fire department actually stole the idea from another department, but they do a volunteer of the year at Marshal Township Volunteer Fire Department, and they have yard signs made up with the volunteer of the year's picture, and then they have about 15 of them, and they put them around the community at public places and stop signs where people can see that volunteer of the year, to recognize that volunteer of the year. It's the first year we've done that, and I will tell you that it's part of our fund drive, and we are 3 weeks into our fund drive, and we are already at the amount of money we raised in fund drive all of last year. We just exceeded the amount today of what we raised last year. So, and we're doing it with a little different flyer and with a different message, and we're using these posters, yard signs, and getting the word out there a little bit better. So I know doing things a little bit different does work, at least in our case, on raising money. I think you're muted. Mikhail, I think you're muted. Now we hear you. Well, no, we don't.
Yeah, Chief, I got a question. This is Craig Hansen.
Yes, sir.
Social media plays a role, seems to, in our life where they'll put something on Facebook or Twitter, and it's farthest from the truth. We're trying to combat that with doing a social media page ourselves, like on a wildland fire, why we do what we do, try to inform the people instead of them just reading somebody's post that they might not even be from this area. We've had it before where one of the daughters of one of the ranchers' house was, their grass was burning, and she was in college in North Dakota, for Christ's sakes. And she was posting stuff that was totally untrue, but people were believing it. So I guess we're spending more time trying to address that issue and maybe informing people more how we operate. We're just trying.
Chief, yes. Social media is a pain in our butt, and but it has its good pains and it has its bad pains. And you just said it, that's one of the challenges with all social media. I can say whatever I want about whoever I want, and there's no consequence. And that's what gives us chiefs gray hair or no hair. And so, one of the things I would encourage you to do, and I know you guys have an AFG grant that's helping do this training series, but try to get a SAFER grant to help recruit volunteers. And be a big part of that SAFER grant will be how to manage the social media aspect, and how your department needs to get somebody, find some young guy, maybe it's not even going to be on the fire department, maybe they'll just be a volunteer to manage social media, who will watch your social media page, and when somebody starts to put stuff on there that's not true, we'll come back at them and tell them this is not true. You don't know what you're talking about. You have to be aggressive at managing your social media exposure, because if not, you will have your reputation hurt. So yes, but it's going to take somebody. We have enough to do, Chief. I know that. We're just keeping the fire trucks running, so to speak. But the social media is valuable to the public, and it's a way for you to get the message out to them about what's the fire department, other than just once or twice a year with an open house or some kind of public display. So yes, it is. Yep, I probably anybody that has a department social media has had that kind of person that all of a sudden comes after them, or they take some picture you posted, and they take you to task for posting that picture. Well, we don't put pictures of dead bodies on Facebook or those kind of things, those kind of pictures, but we do post pictures of what's going on in our fire department, pictures of trucks and water ball competitions and some fires, and some people get upset at that. Well, again, you got to come back at them and let them know we're watching you. We're not going to take this. You can't say those things about us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
All right. Yes.
So one thing I was going to say that something resonated with me that you said was, you said that just to ask people to volunteer, and it was just like, yeah, this is such a no-brainer thing to do, right? And I was thinking we actually do have a SAFER grant, the chiefs do, which is great, and we are doing our recruitment and retention, but we often are focusing on the potential volunteers, but we also need to be marketing to the current volunteers to be, marketing to people. So yeah, I loved that idea. It's just such a simple thing that I just hadn't really thought about. So it was cool.
Yeah. Well, Indiana has a SAFER grant also, and a big part of that is the managing the social media. The PR firm that they hired to manage it has got some really good stuff, and I'll get you the link because there are some free things that you can download that you guys may have already thought of, but maybe you haven't. And it's always good to get stuff that somebody else has invented that you can adapt just to help you. So I'll get that for you.
That's great. I see Steve has his hand up. Steve, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm out in central Montana here where you've got several small, very small volunteer departments that are answerable to a fire district. That district is run by a board. One individual on that board who chairs it is very difficult to work with. He can manipulate the board any direction he wants. If he attends a meeting, we get nothing done. If he misses a meeting, all sorts of things can happen. How do we deal with an individual like that?
How is he selected?
They are elected officials.
Okay, so that means the fire department is going to get involved in politics, something that is discouraged. But there are numerous fire departments around this country have had the same problem, and you got to get that person unelected and get the kind of person that you need in there who thinks about the future. Got to get them elected. Now, there are risks with that. There are great risks with that. But they can't fire the fire department. They can't do without you. Now, they can, this guy, how many people are on that board?
5.
So one other action before you get into politics is you figure out how to get 3 of those other 4 members who are willing to stand up to this guy and says, what you want is not what we want, and we want this, and make the motion and second it and vote on it, and it's over. So that's probably a better step to get involved in a politics. But I do know, I'll tell you, before I became the board president, my fire department got involved in politics and lost. The person they wanted to be township trustee did not win. And subsequently, we still have a contract, and they haven't taken the contract away. And, now my job is to rebuild the road with this new trustee, because we have a township trustee and an advisory board, 3 members on the advisory board, and the township trustee is sort of like your board president. And, but the trustee sways a lot more leverage than the 3 advisory board members. So, he can do sort of like your guy does. And we just had a meeting with him just about 2 weeks ago. I said, I don't want any surprises. I will let you know what's going on. And, when I tell you we need money, we need money. It's not we want money, it's we need it. That might be another thing is to help, we all have wants, but what we really need is we need our needs fulfilled, not our wants fulfilled. And that may be a conversation you have with those 3 board members to try to get them to be on your side. It's like, we're not coming here saying we want a cotton candy machine. I know that's pretty weird, but something that has nothing to do with the fire department. We're asking for nozzles, hoses, insurance, so retention benefits, recruitment benefits, new PPE, maybe a new fire truck. We're asking for this because we need it. What we have is unsafe. Our gear is 12 years old. Our PPE is 12 years old. You got to educate those 3 people that, hey, this is a need, not a want. And volunteers are willing to volunteer, but they're not willing to volunteer with unsafe equipment or unsafe clothing.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Just at the bottom of the hour, does anyone have any other questions for Chief Buckman?
Well, I will just say thank you all very much for coming. I know this has been recorded, so I will, look forward to somebody telling me I used the word BUTT too much. But it's one of those things. I did give you, she does have a handout for you that has most of everything I said and more than what I said. So you guys have that. So you don't have to take notes, but I appreciate you guys all attending, ladies and gentlemen, and hope that it gave you an idea or two. And my phone number, my email is on the handout, so you can send me an email, give me a phone call, text me. That's how most of my communication is today. If I want to talk to somebody, I'll text them and see if they're available, and they may say, "Oh no, I'm not," or be available in the afternoon, and we can get together, because I know we're all busy. you guys are busier than most of us are now with all the wildland fires, but you know, I'll be glad to talk with you and get you some ideas or get you help from some other direction. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, thanks, John, and thanks everybody for taking your time out of the evening to be here. Again, remember, we're going to try and do this every month, have different speakers on and whatnot. And again, thanks, John, for taking your time to impart some information and knowledge with us. And we'll look forward to seeing you again out here soon, hopefully one of these days. And I might run into you somewhere along the way somewhere myself.
All right.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to take the evaluation. All right.
Take care, everybody.
Take
And
care.
most
Have a
of
great
all,
evening.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take care
Bye-bye.
and stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you.
I thought I hung up, but I
Yeah,
guess not.
that's okay.
Boy, Craig's a hanger-on, or he's staying there for every last word, isn't he? All right, sorry about that.
Thank
Everything
you.
going on in the background.
No, I appreciate you making it. All right. Take care. Be safe.
You bet. Take care.